It begins, as these stories so often do, in a quiet American town where nothing terrible was supposed to happen. Wichita, Kansas. A place of brick homes, trimmed lawns, and unlocked doors. The kind of city that sleeps soundly at night, or at least it used to. In the winter of 1974, that changed forever. Part 1. Dennis Rader, BTK. On a cold January morning, Joseph Otero's family woke to the faint sound of movement in their house. He thought it might have been one of the kids. Maybe the dog. He didn't know that, just beyond the doorway, a man was already watching them. Calm, deliberate, rehearsed. Dennis Rader. To the world, Rader was the definition of ordinary. He worked a city job checking yard codes and housing permits. He was a husband, a father of two, a church council president who sat through long Sunday meetings and led scout trips with an almost exaggerated smile. His neighbors waved at him every morning. His co-workers joked that he was the type who filed things twice just to make sure they were right. But that same obsession with order, with rules, control, precision, hid something darker. Rader's fantasies had started decades earlier. Images of tying, gagging, and torturing women, of ultimate dominance. He wrote about them in journals, in coded language no one ever saw. That morning, he cut the Otero family's phone line and slipped inside their home with a gun and a calmness that didn't belong to any sane man. Within an hour, he had tied, strangled, and murdered 4 people, Joseph, Julie, and their 2 children, Josephine and Joey. He left their bodies arranged, the scene ritualistic, almost staged. Then he drove away and went to work, punching in as if nothing had happened. The police had no suspect, no motive. They found footprints, a few fibers, nothing else. Wichita's innocence shattered overnight. Rader, though, was just getting started. He began stalking new victims, picking women from neighborhoods he knew well. He learned their schedules, studied their routines, broke into their homes before they returned so he could wait in the dark. He strangled most of them, often using ropes or cords from the victims' own houses. He called it his projects. He photographed them. He took small items, jewelry, licenses, underwear, souvenirs to relive the moment later. And then, as if the act itself wasn't enough, he craved acknowledgement. Months after his early murders, police received a letter. It described in chilling detail what had happened to the Otero family. Inside, the writer claimed credit for several other unsolved killings. The writer signed it BTK. Bind, torture, kill. He demanded the name be printed, wanted the world to know he existed. "How many do I have to kill," he wrote, "before I get some recognition?" Wichita froze. He'd strike, then disappear for years. He'd go quiet, then write again, poems, codes, taunts. In 1977, he killed Shirley Vian, then Nancy Fox. His letter after Fox's murder began like a police report, sterile, detached. But it ended with words that felt almost gleeful. He liked the attention. Then, for a long time, silence. Through the 80s and 90s, BTK became a rumor. The city rebuilt itself. Families moved. Children grew up never knowing the true terror that had once stalked their streets. But in 2004, 30 years after the Otero murders, a letter arrived at a local TV station. Inside was a photocopy of a victim's missing license. BTK was back, older, restless, eager to be seen again. More packages followed, cereal boxes left in parking lots, dolls tied up in grotesque recreations of his crimes. Finally, a floppy disk mailed directly to the media. The note inside asked a question. Can this disk be traced? The message ended with, "Be honest." Police said yes, and he believed them. The disk carried hidden metadata that traced back to a single computer, a church office machine registered under the name Dennis Rader. When detectives pulled him over on February 25, 2005, he didn't run. He just sighed and said, "Why now?" At the station, he confessed to 10 murders with the composure of a man reciting grocery lists. He detailed everything, the binding, the torturing, the killing, as if discussing home maintenance. His wife filed for divorce immediately. His children refused contact. Dennis Rader, the Boy Scout leader and church president, was sentenced to 10 consecutive life terms. He will die in prison. Wichita finally slept again, but never the same way. Behind those tidy lawns and quiet cul-de-sacs, they learned that real monsters don't hide in shadows. They mow their lawns right beside you. Part 2. Ivan Milat, the backpacker murders. Half a world away, another monster was already perfecting his own haunt. The setting couldn't be more different. The vast, sun-soaked wilderness of New South Wales, Australia. The air smelled of eucalyptus and dirt. Travelers from around the world came to see its beauty, hitchhiking, camping, chasing adventure. For Ivan Milat, it was the perfect hunting ground. Born in 1944, Milat was one of 14 children. The Milat household was strict, loud, sometimes violent. Ivan grew up restless, often in trouble. He worked with road crews, drove trucks, learned the terrain better than most locals. He knew where the roads ended, where the forests swallowed sound. Between 1989 and 1993, 7 young travelers vanished in or around Belanglo State Forest, a sprawling wilderness about 2 hours from Sydney. They came from everywhere. 2 Australians, 3 Germans, 2 British. Some had been hitchhiking. Some were last seen boarding cars driven by strangers. Then, nothing. In 1992, 2 men looking for firewood stumbled upon human bones deep in Belanglo. Police soon uncovered another body nearby. The forensic team realized they weren't looking at isolated deaths. This was a killing field. By 1993, 7 bodies had been recovered. Some shot, some stabbed repeatedly, some bound or gagged. Several victims showed signs of extreme cruelty, gunshot wounds suggesting the killer had used them for target practice. Items from the victims were missing: cameras, clothes, sleeping bags, all vanished. Australia panicked. Backpackers stopped hitchhiking. Parents called home, begging their children to come back. The news called him the backpacker killer. The investigation took years. Leads went nowhere until a survivor came forward. Paul Onions, a British backpacker, had been attacked while hitchhiking in 1990. He said a man who called himself Bill offered him a ride, then pulled a gun on him in the middle of nowhere. Onions managed to escape and report it, but with no solid identification, the case went cold. When he saw the reports about the Belanglo murders, Onions contacted police. His description of Bill matched a man they already suspected, Ivan Milat. A search warrant was issued. When detectives raided Milat's home in 1994, they found weapons, ropes, and dozens of items belonging to the victims, even a foreign backpack stuffed with souvenirs. The evidence was undeniable. At trial, Milat sat expressionless as prosecutors detailed the horrors of his crimes. Witness after witness took the stand. The survivor pointed straight at him. In 1996, Ivan Milat was found guilty of 7 murders and sentenced to 7 life sentences, plus additional time for attempted murder. He showed no remorse, laughing occasionally during testimony. Even in prison, his arrogance didn't fade. He went on hunger strikes, filed appeals, even cut off his own finger once, demanding transfer. None of it worked. He died of cancer in 2019, never confessing. But police believe there were more victims, hitchhikers, travelers whose remains will never be found, lost in the expanse of the Australian bush. The Belanglo forest is still there, green, endless, eerily silent. Locals say if you stop your car and listen, you can still hear the wind whip through the trees, carrying whispers of the 7 who never made it home. Part 3. The Murdaugh Murders. From the barren quiet of the Australian forest, we move to the humid low country of South Carolina, where the swampy air hangs heavy with tradition and secrets. For a century, the Murdaugh family ruled this region. 3 generations served as solicitors, district attorneys, overseeing prosecutions across multiple counties. Their name was power. Their reach stretched from courthouses to politics to banks. When people said the Murdaughs, they said it with both respect and fear. By 2019, that legacy rested on one man, Alex Murdaugh. Alex had inherited everything: the law firm, the wealth, the connections. To outsiders, he was living the Southern dream. Big house, private estate, hunting land called Moselle. But behind that polished image, cracks were spreading. On February 24, 2019, his younger son Paul, reckless, charismatic, and often drunk, took a boat out with friends after a night of heavy drinking. Sometime after 2 a.m., the boat slammed into a bridge piling. 19-year-old Mallory Beach was thrown into the dark water and never resurfaced. The tragedy exposed the Murdaugh's influence. Police body cam footage showed officers hesitant, unsure, deferring to the family name. Rumors swirled that the case was being softened, that justice might again bend to privilege. 2 years later, on June 7, 2021, Alex called 911. His voice trembled. He said he'd just found his wife, Maggie, and son, Paul, shot dead near the kennels on the Moselle property. The dispatcher heard confusion, perhaps fear, perhaps performance. When deputies arrived, they found a gruesome scene. Paul's body lay inside a small feed room. His skull was partially destroyed by a shotgun blast. Maggie's body was several yards away, shot multiple times with a rifle. No forced entry. No missing valuables. Just silence, and two lifeless bodies. Alex said he'd been visiting his mother. But within weeks, investigators uncovered inconsistencies. Cell phone data placed him near the kennels minutes before the murders. Gunshot residue was found on his clothes. Then, prosecutors received a crucial piece of evidence. A video taken by Paul, recorded minutes before his death. The sound of dogs barking fills the background. And then, unmistakably, Alex Murdaugh's voice. He was there. While police built their murder case, another web of lies unraveled. Alex had been embezzling millions from his own law firm and clients, forging documents, and even stealing from settlements meant for accident victims. The financial crimes dated back over a decade. When his secret life came crashing down, Alex staged a bizarre roadside suicide attempt, hiring a distant cousin to shoot him in the head so his surviving son, Buster, could collect insurance money. The bullet grazed him. He survived, and the story only deepened. By the time he went to trial in early 2023, the once powerful lawyer was broke, disgraced, and utterly alone. The courtroom was packed. The evidence was overwhelming: blood spatter, phone data, gunshot residue, the kennel video, financial motive. The prosecution painted a picture of a man so cornered by his own corruption that he killed his wife and son to buy sympathy and time. The defense argued it made no sense, that Alex loved his family. But the jury took less than 3 hours to return a verdict. Guilty on all counts. When the judge asked if he had anything to say before sentencing, Alex simply shook his head and muttered, "I'm innocent." The gavel fell. 2 consecutive life sentences. The fall of the Murdaugh dynasty was complete. In the months that followed, investigators reopened other mysterious deaths connected to the family. The housekeeper Gloria Satterfield, who fell on their property in 2018, and Stephen Smith, a teenager found dead years earlier on a rural road. Both cases, once dismissed, were now part of a widening pattern of deceit and power unchecked. The name that had once stood for authority now symbolized corruption. The gates of Moselle, once guarded and proud, now stand abandoned, a decaying monument to privilege gone rotten. 3 killers, 3 worlds apart. Dennis Rader, the quiet Kansan who needed control so badly he created terror from the comfort of suburbia. Ivan Milat, the bushland predator who turned Australia's open road into a graveyard. Alex Murdaugh, the privileged patriarch whose lies finally devoured his own bloodline. Each hid behind a mask: the family man, the friendly driver, the respected attorney. Evil doesn't always announce itself with a snarl. Sometimes it smiles, shakes your hand, looks you straight in the eye, and asks about your day. When you listen to these stories, when you hear the calm voices on 911 calls, the polite neighbors describing a normal man, the confident faces in courtrooms, remember this: the scariest monsters are the ones who've learned how to pretend. Because the line between good and evil isn't drawn in blood. It's drawn in secrecy, and once it's crossed, there's no way back.